It's been a big week for the MCU with the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and the season finale of Moon Knight. I caught up on the show this week and I just decided to share my thoughts on the show. So thank you for joining me today on the Beniverse as we talk the newest MCU show, Moon Knight, starring Oscar Isaac. So, for those who have not watched Moon Knight yet, I'll just briefly explain the premise. It follows a man named Marc Spector, played by Oscar Isaac. He is a mercenary who has dissociative identity disorder, who is drawn into a deadly mystery involving Egyptian gods with his multiple altars. I hope that's a pretty general explanation of the show. This show is a pretty weird premise for the MCU. Moon Knight is a pretty out there character, and I liked when they focused on certain aspects of Moon Knight, specifically his mental illnesses that he's fighting and the identity disorder that he's going through. I thought that is when the show shined at a great length. The best part of Moon Knight is the performance of Oscar Isaac. He rules in this show. This show completely relies on him being good in this performance. If this is a bad performance, the show completely falls apart. It's not a show that can be saved with the supporting characters because this performance could have been done offensive or just poorly handled under other hands. But what Oscar Isaac does is he's able to humanize and get the audiences invested in a story that's just really out there and weird and honestly, at times, just really hard to follow. He guides us through it in a way that is just very charismatic, just very real. This character feels fully three-dimensional despite his superhero powers. This show, Moon Knight, has a lot going in its favor. Specifically, like I said, Oscar Isaac, but the performances all around are really good. In particular, the love interest of Layla, played by May Calamé, she was great in this show. I thought her and Isaac had a great relationship that built up as the season went on. And they're really the central focus of the show, and their relationship is really just the key part of this. And they're able to just balance each other off really well. She's able to kind of humanize Mark in a way that we as an audience just wouldn't get to see because we don't know much of Mark's past. We learn his past through her. So I really liked what she brought to this show, what May brought to this show. I thought she was really good in the role as Layla. Now, Moon Knight's a really, like I said, out there show, and it's for better or for worse at times. This show meanders. It's 6 episodes long, which means in total it's a little under 6 hours, and it feels long. Specifically, the first half, episodes 1 through 3, can be a little slow. 2 and 3 in particular is a really exposition heavy in a way that really loses some steam and interest. I was really invested in the first episode. I found the second and third one a little bit slower. And then when we focus back on who Mark is, what this mystery about this character of Moon Knight is, I thought it was really intriguing, but it does take its time. And it's kind of an issue throughout the show because it has to set up this Egyptian mythology because that's just the central core of the character of Moon Knight. He is this guy that's essentially possessed by an Egyptian god to do his vengeance. But the issue with that is the mythology can become so muddled and so just too much of it so quickly that you just kind of lose interest in what's going on. I found myself there's a bunch of names being thrown around. None of them have a relationship, and it's just these CGI skeletons that are supposed to be the spirits of the gods being possessed through these skeletons, and there's just a ton of them, and they don't really do anything throughout the show. I'm not saying that they don't serve the story, but in terms of characterization, you just know, okay, this is the god of this is the god of that, and there's this war going on, and it's so less interesting than the actual character that Oscar Isaac plays. So anytime it cuts to this, it just feels really uninteresting. And that's an issue that I found a lot with this show. I thought a lot of the actual story of the show was way less interesting than the characterization of its main character of Mark, played by Oscar Isaac. The show really meanders at times, and I think it suffers from a bad villain. Ethan Hawke does the most that he can in this role as the kind of religious zeitgeist leader. And it's not that this character is bad. It's just that there's not really any clear motivation going forward with him. And I just found this character really lackluster, especially compared to the rest of the cast. It kind of felt like, and I'll be honest, I felt like Ethan Hawke was doing this for a paycheck. This is a guy who has said that he's not a fan of superhero movies. He's been backpedaling that since being hired on Moon Knight. I don't think he's really a fan, and I think it's quite clear. His performance is very just whatever. I found it kind of a nothing in this overall story. So I didn't really care for the main villain in this, and it's a problem when he's in all 6 episodes. Now, that's not to say that this show is bad, because I know I'm hitting some of the negative points. I think the show works. The issue with it is I feel like upon rewatch, I'm going to watch episode 4, 5, and 6 a lot, but before that, I'm not going to watch a ton. Now, the reason I say that again is because some of the meandering nature, some of the focus on Ethan Hawke's character, when we focus away from Oscar Isaac, it just kind of doesn't have a story that I find particularly engaging. With that all said, where the show leaves off at the end of episode 6 does give it value upon rewatch, where I want to go back and notice certain details, because we learn a lot about Oscar Isaac's character in episode 5, and it really does reshape how we think about the entire show. So in that case, there is definitely elements of rewatchability in this, but overall there was just this issue with the show that I could really never get over, and that's that I felt that it was overly long for a large chunk of it. I think this is a TV show that, while entertaining due to the main performance of Oscar Isaac, again, I can't reiterate this enough, Oscar Isaac is wonderful in this role. He might be one of the best actors the MCU has hired so far. He just brings this character to life. But my issue with this show is that it goes on way too long, and honestly, it's kind of been the issue with some of the MCU television properties. This could have been better as a movie, I think. I think this was actually deserving of movie status. I think the story would have been much tighter. I think we would have been able to go through the main chunks of the movie or of the story of the television show much faster, while still giving us. Now, there are some elements that I think would have been maybe lost a bit, especially when we're dealing with the character's past. I think there was a way to do it and still make it more interesting than what the show did at times. Because again, when watching the show, I feel like it has a lot of just really slow moments in it. And just another thing that I've noticed that is an inherent issue with the MCU television shows right now is that episode 6, you always know, is going to be the big boss fight. That's always what it's going to be, because it needs to end that way. And the big boss fights have always kind of been the weakest part of the MCU. So thus the season finales always seem to be semi-weaker. I think this one has a better one just because they introduce a new aspect of the show and Oscar Isaac's performance that I think really is an intriguing factor. But that's the thing. WandaVision, same thing. Really intriguing premise at the end of WandaVision series finale, but not necessarily a great finale for what it's been building up to. And that's what I found about Moon Knight. I thought the episode 4 and 5, and specifically 5 is my favorite episode. What 5 builds on, by the time you get to 6, it really just doesn't have a chance to be anything more than just a generic CGI superhero fight. And that's what I found disappointing. But what Moon Knight works is when it focuses on its character, when we get to see Oscar Isaac just giving a tour de force performance as Mark and Steven. And it's really impressive in all those aspects. I think the transformation of Moon Knight is really well done. I think the costume looks great. He's a character that I'm really excited that we get to explore. And as a season 1, I'm excited for it. I want to see how they're going to incorporate this into the MCU because he feels so tonally different. At times the show has a very horror vibe to it, and I think it works really well for the show, but it also adds a level of confusion at times. There's this thing where they kind of just cut quickly, and it doesn't really, at the beginning, it kind of just leaves you really confused more than it intrigues you. Once you understand what's happening in those moments, it makes much more sense, and you go back and you think, oh, okay, I understand that. But up until those moments, it doesn't ever really click for me. And that's what I just found a lot of this show. At times it really works, and at other times I thought it was missing something. And I think that something was just straight up a better story and a faster paced story, because I did think it meanders a little bit. With all of that said, I'm still not giving Moon Knight a bad review. I know it sounds like I definitely had some problems with this. I did. But what works so well is Oscar Isaac, and I could have spent much more time with Oscar Isaac and the character of Layla as his love interest / sidekick / hero in this. What they do with those two is really special and really unique, and I really like those aspects of the show. It was just some of when we get to the actual superhero part of the show, that's kind of the dullest part, and when it's a superhero show, that does hurt you a little bit. So overall, I really enjoyed Moon Knight. I think this is the case of, hopefully season 1 just had so much to set up with the character that in season 2 we can really just get the gears grinding and going, and we really get this really great character in the MCU that we get to explore a lot of things that other characters don't get to typically explore. So in that case, I'm really excited for this. I think season 2 and following iterations of Moon Knight are going to be much better than what season 1 had to offer. Right now, I like this show, didn't love it. I'm giving it a 3 out of 4 star review. I think it has a lot of great qualities. Also just thinks it misses the marks with its story. The pacing's just a little off for this. But again, really entertaining show. If you like the MCU, I think you're going to quite find some fun with it. And this show is an Oscar Isaac tour de force. Check it out for that reason alone. Thank you for checking out this review. My name is Ben Friedman. If you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.